The new Ultimate Universe is a haven for a twisted and demented version of the Marvel Universe, and the Ultimate Invasion is that story. Today we'll be covering issue 3, but to get here, the Maker, an evil version of Reed Richards, finally discovered a way to remake his home universe. But this time, he wasn't going to let a bunch of Avengers be created and ruin his fun. This time, he's the god of the Ultimate Universe. In the last chapter of our story, he revealed to Howard Stark that individuals from the future were coming back in time to ruin his plans, and that they managed to punch a hole through his brain, ruining his memories. Now, he's inviting Howard Stark to the inner group of this whole universe to learn how things really work. This is Comicstorian. I make audio dramas of comic books so you know what to add to your collection and what to buy when you check out your local comic book store. Now let's begin Ultimate Invasion, Issue 3. Howard Stark stands over the grave of his friend and colleague, Obadiah Stane, his son Tony next to him. "I'm sorry, Dad." Howard nods, holding up his drink, taking a long draught for his fallen friend. "What are you gonna do now?" Tony asks, and Howard admits that he isn't really sure. And then Tony finally asks the question, "What's been weighing on you for days?" "What happened, Dad? What happened in Latveria?" It was 2 days ago that Howard stood in a lavish meeting room in Castle Latveria. He recently learned of the Time Warriors and the Maker's time machine. He looked around the room, seeing the leaders of the 7 territories of the Earth. Emmanuel DaCosta walks over, introducing himself, beginning to explain the secret workings of the world to Howard. Howard is surprised that the rulers of the 7 nations can be in the same room as each other, knowing what he knows about history and their current economic, social, and political climates with each other. But that is when the truth of the world is revealed to Howard. It is DaCosta and the Hulk that explain that whatever political strife the world sees and believes, it's all merely fabricated by the Maker and the rulers of the 7 territories. It was the Maker that developed the plan. And while the territories might seem like they're at odds, it is merely a plan to allow the nations to grow and expand, while the populace is distracted from whatever errors and mistakes the ruling class might make. Howard is stunned by this revelation. "That might be the most insidious thing I've ever heard," he gasps. But the Hulk explains that through trial and error, the Maker has discovered that most humans cannot live in a world of peace, that they are driven towards some form of conflict. "To be fair, not all of us agree with such universal assumptions, Mr. Stark," the Hulk rumbles, himself a leader of peace and inner calm. "I wish it wasn't true," the Hulk whispers. But the door is open to reveal the Maker, who smiles at the rulers that have gathered here. "But it is and it always has been," he says, and Howard looks at the Maker, telling him that he isn't sure that he can believe all of this, but the Maker shrugs. "It won't change who they are and who you are. Because Howard Stark, you're rich, brilliant, and powerful. You're one of us," the Maker says. Howard rubs his head, finally asking the Maker if everything that the world sees is merely designed to keep the populace happy and complacent, then what is the real work? The Maker smiles even broader. "Ah, Mr. Stark, the question you should have been asking. Now we're getting somewhere." Back in the present day, Howard finishes telling Tony about everything that he witnessed and learned. The two of them then sit upon a helicopter over New York. "So what are you gonna do, Dad?" Tony asks, and Howard sighs, taking a sip of his martini. "You got any brilliant ideas?" he finally asks as he looks at his son. Tony looks out over the city before turning back to his father. "I think you should fight him." The helicopter banks, and Howard admits that he thought of it, but he isn't sure that he could win. "You should fight them, and you should win," Tony adds. But the helicopter finally lands, and Howard and Tony disembark, with Howard telling his son that he needs time to think of a plan, but promises that he will let him know if Tony can help. "I promise, and if I need you, I'll let you know." It was 1 day ago that the Maker continued to explain to Howard what was actually going on. He led Howard Stark into the depths of the city, showing him where he'll be working on the time machine that the Maker discovered. And as they enter a chamber, the Maker motions to someone else. "No one works alone, Howard Stark. I'd like you to meet Reed Richards. Some say he's the smartest man in the universe. I have to say, I do agree," the Maker says, and at the sound of voices, Reed Richards turns around, revealing his face to be shrouded by a metal mask. The man in the Iron Mask. Meanwhile, in the far-flung future, so far forward that we can't even really tell where it is, the generic heroes that acted as Time Warriors cheer for their leader, and Kang turns to them all. "I heard your cries. I have heard you ask me, Kang, is it time?" "So I tell you," The time is now, Kang cries, clad in his own suit of Iron Man-like armor. And that brings us to the conclusion of Chapter 3 of Ultimate Invasion, leaving only Chapter 4 left. Now you may be wondering what my opinion of this story is, and honestly, I think it's moving way too slow. I don't understand why we're spending so much time world building when most likely this Ultimate Universe is going to be destroyed, and then we're going to get the new one. But I do want to say that in the fall or winter, whatever time frame it is, we're getting a brand new Ultimate Universe spun out of this storyline. So maybe this is how the world's going to be, and this whole 4-issue spread is going to be like a build up to that, some world building to get us there. But I feel like this is meant to be like a 12-issue spread and somehow got condensed to 4, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments down below and how you think the storyline is going. Don't forget to join YouTube memberships to get early access and do all the YouTube jazz if you want to know when our next video comes out. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.